Welcome, everyone. We had quite a few people who registered for this special event, and we're just allowing people to come into the room. Feel free to say hello in the chat and let us know where you're signing in from. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming. This is such an important topic, and it's one that's close to our hearts, which is why you're here. So let's just take a moment and just breathe and bring yourself into the room so that we can be open to listening to both solutions and new information. So I'll just give us a beat. So with that, I want to thank Jen for encouraging us to create this forum. And Jen will be speaking and give us an orientation, and then she will invite the others to speak one after another. All right, and they will introduce themselves with a short introduction. So I'll leave it at that. And Jen, thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Letecia, and all the team that's putting this on. Diane, Liliana, and Judith. It's great that we've been able to do this in a very short time. I just wanted to start out by saying that I've been in the feminist movement for a long time, and I started out in Italy in a consciousness raising group. And there, everybody could say what they thought without any anger on the part of any of the others. We all accepted each other's experience and opinions. And sometime after that, I was with a group that put on what we call the peace tent in Nairobi at the UN Decade for Women Final Conference. And in the peace tent, we had women from different countries that were at war or in opposition to each other. And they discussed their different points of view in a peaceful manner. If people didn't agree and things got too hot, we sang a song until it boiled down a little bit. But it was great, and people did have their opinions available to one another. So then after that, just jumping forward, I have been writing about the gift economy and the exchange economy, and how the gift economy is based in maternal unilateral giving to satisfy needs, while exchange is quid pro quo, and you give in order to get back. And when 9/11 happened, I wrote an article about how the whole issue of what the US did in reprisal to 9/11 was in an exchange mode instead of in a gift mode. And we've seen since then what a terrible propagation of wars has happened after that, and how that very use of the exchange paradigm in wars is in itself a really awful model for everything that we do. And I think we're seeing that again now, and we need to find a way of doing unilateral giving and looking at the needs of the other person, as mothers do when they're taking care of babies. They have to do that. They have to satisfy the other person's needs and understand it. So that is what we need to rebirth in all of our society and all of the things that we do. And because actually we're not going to survive if we don't do that, and as also do it towards nature and take care of nature as she has taken care of us for all of these eons. So in the beginning, I would like to introduce first Jodie Evans from Code Pink, and she will talk to us about what she perceives in this tremendous moment that we're living in.
Thank you, Jen and Diane and Letecia, for always taking care of us and bringing us together to share our hearts and what we're thinking. When you sent the question, I was trying to figure out, it's such a, this moment in history, this profound moment in history. And so I'm going to leave to my partner, Medea Benjamin, to talk about what's happening in the moment. And I wanted to pull back and really look at the bigger picture, because it's so profound what is happening in this moment of history. So if anything has good has come out of this horrific war, it is that the moral depravity of the so-called rules-based order has been exposed to the masses, and the mask has fallen from the neoliberal imperialist colonial warmongers. For far too long, politicians have told us that they live by the standards of human rights and democracy and freedom of speech. But these are the same individuals and countries who say that Israel has the right to defend itself from the world's largest concentration camp. Western leaders have weaponized human rights and democracy to expand their humanitarian wars and expand their settler colonial projects, of which we need to look at Palestine as one. These are the same power structures that brought us the wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Somalia, and Libya, and the brutal maximum pressure campaigns, sanctions, and regime change operations against sovereign countries like Syria, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and so many more that have been resisting US imperialism. So Israel's war in Gaza is just an outward and blatant expression and representation of what they represent: a bloodthirst for war that fuels the military-industrial complex. These wars are made inevitable. We see dead children, they see stock prices go up, and they manufacture the consent for these wars with the money, with taxpayers' money, with our own money. We are making this happen. Palestinians have won the hearts and minds of humanity, fueling what I experience as the greatest global uprising, a global enlightenment. When you've kind of been working against this darkness for so long, it does feel like an enlightenment. Even though it's brutal and horrific every day and heartbreaking. So we have to go, to the roots of this, which is, as Jen noted, this capitalist system, this war economy, that is meant to make us powerless, that is constructed to make us powerless. But the world is learning they have power. The warmongers have to spend millions of dollars on propaganda to manufacture the consent for those that can actually believe that killing children is okay. And we look at that right now, but we have AI, this like dark shadow over us, that's going to take us to a whole new level. When we are looking at, how can someone think that and how are they educated? We're looking at a future where kids are plugged into machines that take them to a beautiful world while hell is happening outside of them. It's kind of the Matrix is on its way. So it's why we have to disarm the discourse and cultivate peace economies and refuse to be part of the war economy. And you've heard me speak here about this almost every year, but it has become so clear that we have to take education back for our children and bring them back into relationship with life. We look at these horrors, but they are escalating and nothing is in the way. 20 years of the war on terror cost US taxpayers $22 trillion and killed almost 6 million people. While Bush and Blair are free, Julian Assange is in Belmarsh prison. This is a historic moment. This is the shift that we've been waiting for, but we cannot let go. We must hold on. It is going to be messy. They have 70, the US, UK, Israel have 75% of the world's weapons, and they're nuclear. As mothers, as women, as those still connected to life, we must not let go. In the 60s, they succeeded in severing leadership from the masses who were building power. This time, we must stand with the world. The UN vote shows that 7 billion people of color on the planet see the moral depravity and stand for life. So how this plays out will take years, but we need a reorganization of power, and ground zero is Gaza. We cannot let go. We cannot let them take possession of Gaza.
I'm sorry, that's time.
Thank you.
So I think I go next. Medea Benjamin. I am also with Jodie Evans at Code Pink. And thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I'm going to speak pretty focused on what we've been trying to do in the US, given that I feel were Biden to pick up the phone and say to Netanyahu, time to stop, that this would stop. Some of you might disagree with that, but I truly think that is the case. What we have been calling for is what many of you have been calling for, of course, a ceasefire. It is quite remarkable that even in the EU just called for a ceasefire with conditions that the hostages be released. We could not get that here in the United States. I have been focusing on the Senate, which is where the most important body right now. And while the public opinion polls in the United States say 66% of the people want a ceasefire, we have only been able to get 6 out of 100 senators to call for a ceasefire. That really makes people wonder who it is that the people in the Congress are representing. It certainly isn't the majority opinion. There are many people in the United States who high on their list is seeing the hostages released, and many of them understand that that will only happen with a ceasefire. Many others put humanitarian aid on the top of their list, and they understand that that will only be possible once there is a ceasefire. So ceasefire is critical, and yet we can't get any kind of majority, not even near a majority in the US, and we can't get anyone in the White House to be calling for a ceasefire. That makes us question, who is it that has the power? Jodie talked about the power of the military-industrial complex. I think we have to add to that the power of the pro-Israel lobby in the United States, symbolically by the group called AIPAC, but there are many other similar kinds of organizations, including Christian evangelicals that are very powerful as well. They give a lot of money to campaigns, whether it's in the White House or in Congress, and they have tremendous influence because they put the fear of God into the members of Congress, that if they don't vote or call for what AIPAC is calling for, they will be kicked out of Congress. They will be primaried. They will be under tremendous attack. We see poor Rashida Tlaib in the US Congress, the only Palestinian American in Congress, who, having said Palestine should be free from the river to the sea, was censured by the entire Congress, whereas Netanyahu says that Israel will control everything from the river to the sea, and he is in line to get $14 billion more from the United States for that. So shifting from the issue of the ceasefire, we're also trying to stop the next tranche of $14 billion, which is in addition to the yearly $3.8 billion that the US gives to Israel every year. This fight to stop the $14 billion is kind of in one way a lost cause, because we know that there is a majority in Congress to get that money to Israel. But we are fighting very hard to say that this is blood money, and that there should be no more US money going to Israel. There are some members of Congress who say, well, we want to condition money. You might have heard Bernie Sanders. He's kind of the best we have in the Senate, and he won't even say very clearly ceasefire, and he won't say no money to Israel. He says no money unless conditions are met. And those conditions are that that Israel obeys US law and international law, which of course it is not doing.
1 minute.
Unfortunately, those quote conditions only have a small minority of senators who will even call for that, 18 of them, and it will be stripped from the final bill, which will most likely go through this week in this coming week in the Senate. Then we'll have some problems in the House. But more important is to talk about the larger picture, that our White House and our Senate is controlled by forces that don't represent the interests of the people of Israel, don't represent the interests of the Palestinian people, don't represent the national security interests of the United States, do represent the interests of the war machine. And that is why it's so important that we keep doing this work and use this opportunity to keep building this amazing grassroots movement that is now in the inside of the halls of power as well. The interns in the White House, the staff in the Congress, 1,000 members of AID, the Agency for International Development. So now the inside and the outside are becoming one, and that is where I have my hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Medea. Laura, welcome.
Hi, so my name is Laura Kandle. I am a member leader in the organization Jewish Voice for Peace. I'm going to start by saying that I do not speak for Jewish Voice for Peace. I speak as a person who is also a member of Jewish Voice for Peace. But first of all, I'm going to try to tamp down my imposter syndrome, because there are so many brilliant, active, ready to go people on this panel today. And it is just a joy to be here and to just have a moment of representation as a Jew, as an anti-Zionist Jew, and as an activist for peace. So we're talking a lot about the military-industrial complex. We're talking a lot about who has the power and how this power is reinforced. And one of the things that I think I can lend to this conversation is the concept of how Zionism reinforces these kinds of brutal campaigns. So I come at it from the Jewish experience. When I was growing up, I grew up in a Reformed Jewish community as part of a Reformed Jewish synagogue. And I remember my own experience of hearing about the history of Judaism through a Zionist lens, about the state of Israel through a Zionist lens, and having a moment, even at a young age, when one of my teachers was talking about the Six-Day War, and in a very strange, twisted story, spoke of how during the Six-Day War, the Egyptian forces saw the angel Gabriel behind Israeli military tanks and knew that Israelis and Zionism had the force of God behind them and were scared and left, right? Even at that young age, I went, something seems off here. And that began my journey away from Zionism into anti-Zionism. Because at the end of the day, anti-Zionism is about respecting and understanding that you cannot be exclusive based on any kind of identity, let alone the Jewish identity, and that having an exclusive Jewish state is an apartheid state. And so I have become a member of Jewish Voice for Peace back in 2016 when I moved to New York. I've been active in the New York City chapter ever since. Obviously, during this time, we've had a lot of really strong actions, including the Grand Central action, which you may be aware of, where thousands of Jews came into Grand Central, essentially stopped Grand Central from functioning, and chanted about peace, about ceasefire, about Palestinian freedom because we have to be that active, prominent voice of Jewish resistance to the mainstream Zionist approach. And for that, we've been called anti-Semitic, we've been called self-hating Jews, and it's a long journey to get the world to shift its mindset away from the concept of a Jewish person being intertwined with an Israel identity, with an exclusive identity of a Jewish state. And so the more that we work to reframe this space towards justice, towards collective liberation, the more I feel empowered. And we have daily power hours that are about 30 minutes long, in which we call our Congress members. 300 to 500 people generally attend on any given day. And this is run by Jewish Voice for Peace. And something that I say when I'm on the power hours is, it is a long road, and that we have to be prepared to recognize every single day that we take action as a single step along that path towards change, along the path towards a future of peace, towards a future that does not include an apartheid state, and that includes justice for everyone.
Thank you, Laura. Our next speaker is going to be Maria Suarez. Welcome, Maria. Maria's calling in from Costa Rica.
Thank you. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. It's a really great to be here in this process and in this moment. And I would like to start, and I'm going to speak very shortly, but I'm going to speak from my own experience and then maybe address why I stand where I stand. As a baby boomer, having been born in Puerto Rico in 1948, the World War II, to me was history. But what is not history is the outcome that brought about the United Nations human rights system, which I embraced since I was very young, and especially when I moved to Central America in a context of the 1970s, where we had 5 military dictatorships in the region except for Costa Rica. And there was no way that we could even think about having a life without being able to shift what Jodie called the reorganizing of power in a historical context of dictatorships and of occupation of the Panama Canal and the Panama country and the region by the United States. As a Puerto Rican, I'm also a US citizen. So what was history has become something very tangible with the human rights framework that also as a feminist, I had to embrace to change the framework because it didn't include everything that was happening to people. But so as an activist in all of the wars and having been in the war in Central America, I realized that the end of the dictatorships could not be waged by war. And I was part of the war. I wasn't a guerrilla that was armed, but I was working in the movement, in the what they call the liberated zones of the guerrilla, teaching people to read and write and to develop instruments to be able to organize. And when the peace processes came that we were able to put in place, what I realized is that there was a power issue within the context of the war as a way to solve conflict, and realized, of course, that it didn't solve anything, but that in order to be able to develop a human rights framework in Central America that would stem out of that, we had to finish the war. And the peace processes in Central America, what I learned about it is that unless you use all of the instruments that you can, except war, because it doesn't lead to any solution, you have to end the war. And we did. It's a long story and I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to take you to my next step historically, where I learned the lessons about the difference between having been in a war, in 5 wars that were about ending the historical dictatorships, and what we face today. And it's that I was caught in New York in 9/11. Most of you know that. I was coming from South Africa, from the Conference Against Racism, and was at the airport when everything happened, and all hell broke loose in the airport because the United States thought that whoever did that was going to go through the airport where we were, and had to walk
1 minute, please.
to Brooklyn. Is that it?
1 more minute, please.
So what I want to tell you is that what that showed me is that it was going to take a different shape, that the world was a different world than the one that had lived in Central America. And that I believe that the human rights framework has to be used the way it is. We have to continue changing it, but we have to use it the way it is. And at the end, I'm going to make a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I'm going to call on Paola. I thought I was going to call on Frida. Are you ready, Frida, or shall I go to Paola?
I'm not planning to speak. I'm enjoying listening. It's fabulous.
Okay, great. Let me call on Paola. You need to unmute, my friend.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me?
There you are.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Paola is joining us from Italy.
Yes, I am Paola Melchiori. I am a long-time feminist activist and theoretician. I don't know how to call myself. And I have been working also in mediation in the 80s in the dialogues between Israeli women and Palestinian women, an experience that is finished since many years. And mainly after the Oslo agreements. I didn't realize how emotional the experience of European on this war could be, because each of us, Italy, Germany, the European countries went through the Shoah in a way which was very different, I think, from anywhere else. My uncle came from Auschwitz, even if not being a Jew. And in my house, 2 years was hiding Jewish people from the persecution. So the idea of the persecution of the Jewish is part of our history. And these massacres for us is looking at a massacre among victims of victims now. And so we are extremely suffering, traumatized, even if we are not there. We are polarized internally and externally. Internally, because we have these two identities in a way. All the Palestinian experience and all the Shoah, and the fact that the body of the human rights that was approved in 48, whatever imperfect, was the dream of not going back to that situation, was never again something like the Shoah. So that is the body, the only wall that we had against the repetition. And now we have a terrible repetition. So, and we are as civil society, as feminists, we are still in very political impotence, and we watch what is going on. So what can we do from this space? I'm talking, this space here is a space of different people in different positions having human values. And gift economy is the essence of humanity in a way. We are trying to practice that. in Italy, we are trying to do a work in this direction, but more specific. So what are we doing? I don't know how many minutes I have because that is the main part I want to focus. We realize that there is an enormous ignorance on what is going on there and what was going on before October 7th. So we try to contextualize, to increase the knowledge of the history before that 7 October. That was not the beginning of the story. We try to walk inside polarized situation that you already mentioned. If you talk about Palestine, you are pro-Hamas. And if you talk against the Zionist state, you are anti-Semite. And this is very strong in my country. We try to work on language, on that, and on the language that we use inside this democratic so-called landscape: revenge, democracy, humanized people.
One minute.
Jungle. Okay. So we try to talk not about identities, but humanity, what it means to keep our humanity. And we try to stay inside the value system, which is the value system that gave birth to the body of human rights, whatever imperfect. And as feminists, we know that the women's experience and the women's theory is not there clearly inside, but we are trying to stay inside that wall that was this wall against going back to revenge, to eye per eye, to the jungle of the power of the powerful, and that's it. No walls against any power, and see if with feminist eyes we can retake a dialogue inside this framework beyond identities. We hope that in the civil societies, this can happen. Finish.
Thank you, Paola. Next, I'm going to call on Peggy. And if not, Peggy, we can actually have you come later if you can unmute.
It's, if I don't see her, but if we can see her, we can press the ask to unmute button. I just don't see her, so I can't press it. And then she will have a message that will help her.
Sorry, she's written in the chat that she cannot unmute, so.
Okay.
There you are. I'm going to try to see if you got a message from me. There.
Yes. Oh, good. Oh, that's wonderful. I can speak now. Thanks. This technology defeats me. Oh, I'm so happy I can add my voice. I will come in whenever there is space for me.
This is good right now. Yeah. Peggy, please.
Okay, well, I'm so moved by what everyone has said so far. And I thought that what I would like to add is something of my own experience and really focusing on the UN. So I'm from the Caribbean, and I got involved in working on women's rights issues in the 1970s. So I was a witness as a Caribbean person just coming out of colonialism and independence. I witnessed the emergence of a voice from the South, the anti-colonial, the former colonial countries in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Asia, once they were independent, having a voice at the UN in the 1970s. And the UN provided an incredible space for the voices of people from the South. And they called for a new international economic order. Very clearly, they understood that what was needed was a new order that would allow them to develop their own economies. They challenged the imbalance between the prices that were paid for manufactured goods and the prices paid for primary products. And in that you have a structural gap. If every year the price of manufactured products went up and every year the price of raw materials went down, you have a structural debt gap that you know, whatever you do, you're never going to overcome that. So that is what they were calling for. All of that was stopped when Reagan and Thatcher came to power. All of that conversation called for a new international economic order. There also emerged a very strong G77, a group of 77 states which were non-aligned, which refused to get caught up in the Cold War between the United States and Russia. What I have seen happen in the last 10, 15 years is the complete takeover of the neoliberal framework. The neoliberalism has been globalized. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, as Margaret Thatcher said, there is no alternative. And all of the South just went for that. All of our countries just went for that neoliberal order. And it was globalized. The technology allowed it to be globalized. And what we see at the United Nations now is just, I don't know, I can't find the words to describe it. I can't find the words to describe the disappointment I feel about the incapacity of the United Nations to provide that kind of voice for justice in the world. And that has happened for a few reasons. One is that what happens at the United Nations is only a mirror of what has happened to the member countries. The United Nations make a distinction between the political part of the United Nations and the technical programs of the United Nations. So I want to leave aside for the moment the technical programs of the World Food Program, the World Health Organization. They can be subject to critiques as well, but for the purpose of this meeting, I want to really focus on the Security Council and the General Assembly. And the General Assembly is only the expression of the member states. And the Security Council, of course, is held hostage by the 5 permanent representatives.
1 minute.
So that is mainly what I want to offer to this conversation, to say that I have witnessed the emergence of a strong voice for justice in the world and the collapse of that voice. And what excites me at the moment is, as Jodie, I think, said at the beginning, we see the unmasking of the hypocrisy of the so-called countries of Western so-called civilization. We see the unmasking of that. And we are seeing a new realignment. We're not there yet, because look at the inability of so many countries from the South to stand with South Africa. That tells you everything. I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Miki, for helping me to have a voice in this group.
Thank you, Nat. Thank you, Peggy, for being able to be with us. And yes, Miki, can you please unmute yourself? You'll be our last main speaker. And then I just want to encourage people that if you have a question for one of our presenters, you can begin by raising your hand and you can queue up. Or if you have a comment that you'd also like to offer, raise your hand. Miki.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Miki. I'm originally from Israel. I haven't lived there in almost 41 years. I left because I didn't want to have certain things be done in my name. I moved to the United States where far worse things were done in my name, but I didn't know that was going to happen. And I now live in Spain. And that's a whole other story. What I want to talk about is at a different level from everything that has been said before, which is at the level of how do we each respond to war within ourselves, where the seed of war has been planted in each of us in our socialization. And it's easy to look at this bad player, that bad player, whichever side you're going to align with, there's always going to be a bad side and a good side. And to me, that framing in itself is part of the issue. And what I am looking for is a much deeper understanding of the complexity of what leads to war. And the complexity of what leads to war, obviously, I can't talk about this in a few minutes. I do want to invite us to complexity, that war, every single war that has ever happened has been justified by those who took it and has been condemned by those against whom it was wielded. That's always happened. That is a key feature of war. And I want to move beyond who is the right side and who is the wrong side. I want to move towards a place of mourning all that is happening everywhere, both the massacre happening on the 7th and the horrors and unimaginable devastation and mass murder that is now being put on Gaza. Both the people who support Israel and the people who support Hamas. I want to mourn all of it and bring an understanding to it that it is all an expression of the same thing, regardless of who is doing it, what the scope is, what the reasons are. It is a tragic global situation that I don't believe we can exit by using the tools that are themselves responsible for this continuing. So I don't have a solution. I don't think anyone has a solution, because so far this war has been going on for 100 days and no one has figured out how to stop it. It will eventually stop, and some people will take credit for it stopping as if what they did brought about the end of the war. We never know what ends a war. At some point, all wars that we've had so far in the world have ended. And so this war will eventually end. And the question is, what to do with ourselves, with our friends, with our families, with the people we agree with the people we disagree with. How do we move and act and respond from an energetic that isn't a war energetic? I don't really advocate for any side here. I don't think they're good guys in this war. I don't think they're bad guys in this war. I think they're people who have suffered. I think it was Paola who said it's victims against victims. Who was a victim when, by whom, against whom? It's all, if you go all the way back, all of us are victims of something that started in the Russian steppes and spread throughout Europe and created patriarchy, from which emerged all the wars, from which emerged colonialism, from which emerged imperialism, from which emerged capitalism. There are deep roots for all of this, and all I know to do is all the work necessary to convert those roots, those seeds, within ourselves and around us, within our sphere of influence. Most of us are trying to, 1 minute? Okay. Most of us are trying to think and act outside our sphere of influence. I beg all of us to think, what is actually within my sphere of influence? Medea, part of her sphere of influence is the Senate. So it makes sense for Medea to work in the Senate. It's not part of my sphere of influence. I want to be the most loving person going beyond war within my sphere of influence. And that's what I invite all of us into. Thank you.
Thank you, Miki. Thank you so much. Well, we've actually come to the end of our main speakers actually presenting. I don't see any of you with your hands up that you either have a question for us, and I'm saying this also to our speakers, that you can actually raise your hand if you want to actually create, add more input at this point. I see Vivi, you have your hand up. Can you unmute yourself?
Hello. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you fine.
Hello, and I'm calling from Greece. I want to thank you so much for this initiative. This is a situation that has, I think, just so many of us just wondering for weeks and months, horrified and wondering what to do. And I've been trying to find a way to hold dialogue with my really beloved friends in Israel and I don't know as many Palestinian people, but I know Israeli people because we have a retreat center in Greece and they come and we have women's retreats and I've been trying to communicate with them and to like talk about Palestine and talk about Palestinians and talk about what's happening. And it's been very frustrating that they just go on the defensive and like it doesn't enter. I'm like, what children? Like children dying are children, Israeli children, Palestinian children. Take off the label that says Israeli or Palestinian. And so I've been wondering what to do. And I really appreciate hearing from all of you and how Miki is putting it to find out what is our sphere of interest. What is it that we can do within our sphere of ability? I think that is the right question. It's like, even for us to dream, to write, to do anything, to talk to, as you say, to our politicians. And I'll tell you what I'm dreaming about, and I need your help or your advice or says, your feedback. So we organize a festival for the second year in Greece. It's called Thrive Movement, and it's about community. It's about spirituality and activism and sustainability. And this year, there's going to be a circle of peace for Israel and Palestine. And what it's going to be is like one part of the circle will be that we dance dances from Greece, from Israel, from Palestine. And this woman called Laura Shannon, she's a grandmother of sacred dances, they say. So she's going to teach us. And the way she teaches is amazing because you go into the dance and the history with love, with appreciation. And so that's one circle that will be happening. It's going to be in June. So any help, any advice, any feedback. And then the other circle that will be happening, it'll be from the Zen Peacemakers, who, an organization that you might know. I went with them to Auschwitz years ago, and it's about dialogue and connecting with people. And also from Plum Village, Thich Nhat Hanh has brought together in retreats, Israeli and Palestinians to talk, to meditate together, to have compassionate dialogue. And so this is my sphere of interest, dance and meditation. And so it's been in my mind to do that. And I'd like to stay in touch with some of you so you can give me ideas of whom to invite, how to bring people together, the Israeli voices, the Palestinian voices, and not just, but like anybody from around the world that can get the word out. We do need to shift our consciousness. We need to expand our sphere of thinking. And, there was another conference going on 2
Can you wrap
days ago.
up, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, time's up. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Vivi, if you would please put in your contact information in the chat.
Okay.
And make sure that it's being sent to everyone so that the people who are interested can stay in touch with you. And with permission from people in the group, if we can put the chat up when we post this recording, it will make sure that people will be able to find you. Thank you so much. Karen, and I think I need to put a time limit because I want to be able to cover everyone's voices who wants to speak right now, and then give time at the end for closing words from our main speakers. So,
Letecia,
Karen,
can I say
yes.
one sentence? One sentence. Yes. I learned this from Charles Eisenstein. There are actually 3 camps: pro-Israeli, pro-Palestinian, and pro-peace. The pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian actually speak the same language in reverse. The pro-peace is an entirely different animal.
Thanks, Miki. Okay, I'll come back to you, Karen. Catherine. Can you unmute, Catherine? There you go. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Thank you. Thank you to all the speakers, and I'm really honored to be here. And I just want to say I'm a psychotherapist, and one thing I never hear talked about, which Paula kind of touched on, is the fact that the trauma that's being, my feeling is the trauma that's being committed in Palestine is unresolved trauma is experienced by the Jewish people. So it's trauma that hasn't been fully processed. And I say this also because I worked for 7 years with Suarez people in Holland who went through a genocide while they were in Turkey and had to escape. 15,000 Suarez Christians that had to escape Kurdish persecution and were massacred in Turkey in the 1980s. So I've seen this victimhood being swallowed by the victims and perpetrated onto others. And I just want to close with a poem that I wrote on November 1st. It's very short. I stand here ironing t-shirts, a green dress, your shirt for work, and think how absurd with a genocide not miles away. An endless litany of words drained of all meaning and force. Genocide, ethnic cleansing, displacement, occupation, hostage and liberation, under siege and mass atrocities. Words without context, terrorist, Nazi, Zionist, fascist, Hamas, anti-Semitic, Jew, Christian, Muslim, massacre, and Holocaust. Slippery collective shadow, ruthlessly reckless, animal, beast, less than human, savages. I ease the iron across a tablecloth as the numbers move before my eyes. 2.3 million, hundreds of thousands, 1,400 dead, 3,000 dead, 5,000 dead, 8,000 dead, 732 entire families dead.
Please wrap up.
Under the rubble dead, non-stop bombardment, whispering within, the sliver of silence, not one word, peace. Only the voice of a Jewish grandmother turns to her captor, shakes his hand, shalom. Only the voice of a Palestinian grandmother learns her daughter dead, her granddaughter dead. Please come to me in my dreams, because I cannot live without you. It goes on, but I'll stop then.
Perhaps you could post it in the chat for us. That would be great.
I'll put the link where you can find it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Catherine. Ronnie, can you unmute?
Yes, I'm here now. I'm just moved from my heart, and I find it hard to speak without tears. I am a Jewish grandmother, and I'm part of Women in Black. And when I visited Israel Palestine as part of a peace gathering, I stayed at the Oasis of Peace, Nevi Shalom, Vaughan Salam. And what struck me there, it was a place of peace. It was bicultural, bilingual, and you couldn't tell who was Jewish, who was Arab. It was one community until they went into the army. Then it changed, but the people were the same. And I wrote a short poem, and it begins this way: the great mother holds all her children in her arms. All my children are precious to me. And had a dream about twins, and one was Israeli Jewish, the other was Palestinian, and they were drowning. And the only way to save the twins was to save both of them. So I've been very much involved in independent Jewish voices in Canada, Justice for Palestinians. I teach about Goddess. I work for peace. When I was reading the letter that was included, the link with this meeting, I started reading, and at one point I could not tell whether we were talking about the Jewish Holocaust or the current genocide against Palestinians. I could not tell which was which. And I think that says to me that this is the same struggle, the same issue. I feel an incredible affinity to my Palestinian sisters because we are one. Our history is one. Our history is intertwined. And I'm also part of the Sufi community. And we've been reflecting on this, the grief and the importance of holding our vision of peace and unity. And I really do think the worst thing that's happened is the dehumanization of people who are waging war and people who are victims of war. And I think, I believe that until we can really acknowledge that we're one humanity, that what happens to one person's child happens to my child, I think that is the way forward. That is the way that will bring us peace. And I'm also a dancer. I lead circle dance. I know Laura Shannon. I've gone on pilgrimage with Joan Mahler and Jennifer Berzan to the goddess temples. And I know we need to reach back and reconnect with the goddess, with our understanding of all humanity as one.
That's time.
And humanity with all life on the planet. Thank you very much. Peace.
Thank you, Ronnie. People have been asking if you can post a way to stay in touch with you. That would be great.
Of course. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you so much. Karen, can you unmute now?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So my name is Karen Davies, and I've spent 20 years as a frontline occupational therapist. So I think I have a different perspective. I started in the peace movement when I was 10 years old, doing protests for Ban the Bomb. And I'm on Lekwungen speaking territory in Victoria, BC. I am incredibly surprised at how emotional I am about this, as I am not Jewish or Palestinian. I was at a Ukrainian fundraiser yesterday to support the war. That wasn't my choice. It was a gift of the refugee that I took in May of 2022. I'm very concerned about the Free Palestinian movement in Canada because it seems that it is not peaceful, and the protests in Victoria have been very concerning to me. I feel I have a very small locus of control over this conflict, and am supporting my Jewish and Palestinian friends as best I can. I feel that war is complex, but it's also very simple. It's about power and money and domination. I am also a circle dancer and had the privilege with Ronnie Joy to do a 2-year women's sacred circle dance with Laura Shannon. So I'm very excited about that event in Greece, and I would like to learn more and maybe collaborate to do it in Canada. And finally, my locus of control over this is so small, I have gone to food. And I am now cooking Israeli and Palestinian food and having my friends do the same, because somehow we have to figure out our commonness. And sometimes it can be very simple, because my locus, I feel very helpless with the kind of protests that are happening in my country, or at least in my city, because they're not peaceful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. And I think it's just wonderful that you connect up with Vivi and do a collaboration there. That would be beautiful. All right. It seems that women are a bit shy. And oh, Mary Claire has her hand up. So I want to encourage you, those of you also who are with us, if you feel that you want to speak, I know that we have many women here who are thoughtful and deep thinkers and have much to offer to the group. So please feel encouraged to raise your hand. So Mary Claire, can you unmute?
Well, thank you. I'm terrified actually to speak. I spent most of the last 15 minutes trying to ping other people to speak. Because but I want to bring forward one piece I see both in the chat and in follow-up to what Miki brought forward about Charles Eisenstein's commentary about being pro-Palestinian or pro-Israeli or pro-peace. And I was chatting with Mary Condren about her work with Bridget and the vision of Bridget's abbesses as the one who turned back the streams of war, and she who held under her cloak the opposing factions and surrounded them in her care and hospitality so that they did not realize that they were not winning. Everyone felt like they were winning. I'm sure I have not done justice to the historical accuracy of that. But I just want to bring back the focus of what has been mentioned, and that is of the mother, of the goddess, of the mother, of that in which the maternal gift economy is rooted as the maternal third space, third force, the triple goddess, that which has not been, will not be polarized. At the beginning of Western civilization was the lie that hid the mystery of the middle matrixial third space and turned it into an excluded middle. So I feel that at this time that patriarchy is falling apart, the unmasking of hypocrisy that was mentioned, the moral depravity of rule-based order, which is a binary, that we come together as women to midwife the re-emergence of that inclusivity that holds all opposition and goes above to transcend and return the world to the mystery of that order. I hope something in there made sense. My heart is still pounding for fear that that the eloquence and the experience of all of you that I was shy to speak up in the midst of. I just want to say thank you for this incredible opportunity to dialogue together.
Thanks, Mary Claire. And just so that you know, those of you who are feeling a bit shy, this is a place Jen spoke of in the beginning, that, you know, you speak what's on your heart. And I'm pretty sure that those of us who entered into this room, we want the war to stop and peace. So I'm sure that we are here. So don't feel shy about speaking your heart. Guadalupe. Welcome, my friend. Guadalupe is also in Costa Rica, and I'm so happy to see your beautiful face here. It's been a while.
Hi, everybody. I was born in Central America, and I come from a peasant family of 10 children. And from my own experience, I know what the abuse of human life means. Exploitation in the crop fields, just like now. Many things seem to change, but they have not changed. Agro-industrial enclaves, tourist enclaves, and territorial enclaves full of exploitation, sexual exploitation, injustice generate enormous frustrations and helplessness that lead to intrafamiliar and community violence that escalates to impressive but predictable labels in our patriarchal, neoliberal, racist, and supremacist culture. I understand that the deaths from the bombing hurt a lot, just as much as the people who die from cancer and other diseases inherited from the contamination of agrochemicals that we buy from Europe and that Europe no longer uses hurt. Just as the death of my mother in the 51 years due to poverty, machismo, and 10 births. All dead people hurt. That is why it is necessary to put our energy at this moment in stopping this war and stopping this bombing situation. I mean, this craziness, through studying the geopolitical aspect in this violence and brutality that we are experiencing. As a woman, mother, and feminist, it is our responsibility to embrace the maternal gift of life. It's nothing related with this or the others, or, it's just that we have to stop with this. We can, after, if you want, to think about many things, but at this moment, we women, mothers, we need to stop this situation. Because if we accept that, if we naturalize that behavior, it will continue as always. We need just to do something. We need to stop that. I love you, sisters from Israel, from Palestine, from Central America, from United States. I love you very much, to you all. But now it's a moment just to take care of the gift of life, the gift of the maternity, and take care of our children and all the people that is dying at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Guadalupe. I wonder, for those of you who don't know Guadalupe, she's a beautiful songstress and singer. And I wonder if I can call on you to do a closing song for us. I know it puts you on the spot, but when we close today, if you could do that for us, it would just, I think, bring it all together. So thank you for joining us, and I'll call on you at the very end. Thank you so much, Guadalupe. Love you. All right, Tracy, can you unmute?
Hi, my name is Tracy Gary. I feel very, very honored to be here. I am an American. I was born in New York. I live in California. And I've been in and out of the maternal gift economy work over decades, having studied mythology. But, really, I'm here to say there was a moment earlier this week where we were not sure whether this call was actually going to happen. And I was one of the people who said, maybe we need to, change it in these ways and these ways. I want to say I was absolutely wrong. And that I really, really thank the organizers for proceeding and for everyone to have brought their heart and each of your extraordinary, and certainly I have my own, but very different. I work globally and have worked, but it is nothing in comparison to the beautiful quilt that this is. There was a moment where I thought, oh, we should really have a call to action. This is the call to action. If we could get as many people as possible to simply listen to this, or if we edit it in some small way, but I really think it's perfect. It's so beautiful, the diversity of voices, just as all quilts are, as different as we are. Each is a block, each of you is a block that brings decades of history. And I want to especially pay a great debt of, I don't want to point anyone else, but it takes immense courage to be as honest as everyone has been in a way that we can receive you each through our hearts and be reminded by Miki and others who've had to do so much work not to be in rage and desperate, each person really. So I feel enriched. I feel honored. I feel in the presence with Letecia as facilitator and others who are timekeeping, honestly, as though we are carried by the maternal gift economy values. And we have everything to share this very tape with the world, because it is just full of great, deepest wisdom and a path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Mary's calling is calling in from Ireland. So Mary, it's been a while and we always welcome you with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Letecia, and thank you also to Mary Claire for mentioning the work of Bridget. As some of you may know, Bridget has become a public festival here in Ireland, and now we're all massive explosions of creativity and art, and all sorts of things are happening. We started celebrating Bridget about 30 years ago when there was tremendous civil war in Ireland, and we wanted to find a place for women to speak, to hear each other into speech, and also for turning back the streams of war in the tradition of the great abbesses of Kildare. And one of the things that the Irish law has shown us is that in Irish law, there were three women who were recognized. One was the queens, the other were the embroiderers, and the third were called those who turned back the streams of war. And they were the abbesses of Kildare. In other words, there was a legitimate role for women in early Irish law for turning back the streams of war. And those women also could pardon criminals on their way to execution. In other words, they embodied the beatitude called mercy, as opposed to the practice of sacrifice, which dominates the Western imaginary at every single level. So I'm very happy. I spent the day, in fact, writing stuff about peace weavers, sending it to Irish Radio for an interview I'm going to be doing with them on Tuesday, hoping to inject something into the frivolity of the Bridget festivals, as opposed to whatever. I just want to say one thing, if I have time to do it, which is in relation to identity that somebody raised at the very beginning. Sorry, I can't remember who it was. After the Second World War, Wilfred Bion was charged with finding a German civil service. And to make a long story short, he identified two different groups. One was the basic assumption groups, who focused on their identity, and then there were work groups that focused on their aim. The problem is now for contemporary feminism is that the focus on identity is all pervasive. And it dominates. I teach in the Center for Gender and Women's Studies, and the focus on identity dominates the discourse to a very, very destructive extent. I think we need to know more about the work of those psychoanalysts who have been working on war, and that might begin to make some kind of difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Jen.
I just wanted to suggest as a practical thing that we might do, and it's all to investigate and find out what the people would think about it, is that there is this group forming in Israel of mothers for it's called for peace. That's called the Cry of the Mother's Cry, and we could support them in some way if they would want us. That's all I wanted to say.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, Arella, one of the women in our network who we've had on a couple of different times, is one of the founding organizers for that group in Israel. Thank you, Jen, for bringing that up. And we'll make sure that we check in with Arella for this group to find out how we can stay in touch with that movement. Angela D.
I am Angela Dolmech from Colombia. Well, I am Angela Cura Dolmech from Colombia. Well, sorry, I am wearing sunglasses. I had a fall, so I had a bruise on my eye. I think it has been a fascinating conference. It has been a fascinating meeting, and I want to retake three things from what we have been speaking. One, I want to retake from what Guadalupe said about mothers, about the fact that we are different. We are women, and we give birth, and we have children, and we breastfeed, and I want to retake also what Jen said about joining the mothers group, and I think now is the time for women, for mothers, to retake the lead of the world, because we don't want to breed more children for the war. We don't want to bring more children for the war. We don't have to have more children that they are going to be killed. And I think that should be, I think if we could spread this message, and we as women would probably bring the world to peace.
Thank you, Angela. And glad you could join us. Paola, and then I'm going to call on Miki, who can't raise her hand. So Paola. You need to unmute, my friend. Paola, can you unmute?
Sorry.
There you go.
I just want to highlight, to put in the landscape a terrain, a land that we have to dig into more, which is this land between all the economic reasons, the war, the warlords that are making money, and the government powers, and the US that is ordering Netanyahu, no, but seems to order Netanyahu to stop. And it's a fake news, would say. And the spirit of the people. The Jewish experience is really, I mean, I've studied so much during the 70s, they are the ghost of extinction is so specific to that experience they had. So in all these wars, we have the economic, the Americans, whatever, and we have a specific spirit of people that we have to know better, because this is their sense of who they are as roots, as identity, but in a good sense, not in the one I was using at the beginning, of who they are, what their roots are. And we have to know that, because I like very much what Miki said about the sphere of influence. One sphere of influence is to work also on this. It's not an ideology, it's feelings that make a lot in words, spirits of people. We have to know that and to dig into that land. That's it.
Thank you, Paola. Okay, Miki.
Thank you. I have two bits. One is to follow on what Paola just said. Thank you, Paola, for saying this. It's a very, very delicate line, given that Israel is such a huge, powerful state right now. The reality of the situation in the world is still that if, for whatever reason, the Jews had to leave Israel, there isn't any place in the world that would welcome us. That remains a truth as a group, and I want that to be held and known. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is a project that my Palestinian friend Aida Shibli and I are talking about. And it's not ready, and I don't know if we will have capacity to make it ready, but I want to describe it just for people to have a sense of possibility. We call it Women in White. The idea is to bring 100,000 women from all over the world to any place where there's war, to serve as a collective, massive, nonviolent shield that, in my belief, would stop any army, any organization, any group with arms from continuing war, because I think the taboo on killing large masses of women is such that it will actually stop it. And that is something that we are beginning to conceptualize, how to make such a thing happen. It may not happen in time for this war, but it might happen for some other war. It's not about Israel and Palestine, it's about war in general. So I am just sharing it. It's not yet even something that's written anywhere except in correspondence between her and me. And I was hoping to provide some vision juice for people about what might be possible for humans. That's it.
Thank you, Miki. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised, and I have scanned. Most of you have your cameras off, so if you're waving your hand that you want to speak. Okay, Peggy. Do you need help unmuting, or can you unmute yourself?
I think I'm unmuted now.
Oh, you did it.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks to Miki. I just wanted to, the only thing I wanted to say at the end is to share something from Martin Luther King. In my meditation group this week, we focused on hope. You know, some of us are involved in 21 days honoring the legacy of King. And he talked about hope. I just wanted to share this with you. that King ardently and persistently believed in the power of hope to drive us forward and to eventually overcome adversity. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. And here's the quote that I wanted. Humanity has the capacity to do right as well as wrong. And its history is a path upward, not downward. The past is strewn with the ruins of the empires of tyranny, and each is a monument, not merely to man's blunders, but his capacity to overcome them. This is why I remain an optimist, though I am also a realist about the barriers before us. And I wanted to focus on that bit about that memory, that the past is strewn with the ruins of empires of tyranny, because we must remember that this is not the first war and it won't be the last war. And I'm thinking of slavery, for instance, you know, coming from the Caribbean, I got to think about slavery and how we overcame that, and how we overcame colonialism, and how the civil rights movement in the United States overcame racism. But in each of these overcomings, there's a residue that remains just below the surface, but the resistance also comes back. So there's a spiral of wars and tyranny and the loss, the defeat of that, and the resurgence of that. That's the point. On and on. But in the end, to remember that that tyranny in the past was overcome, I think is what our hope resides in. So I just wanted us to end with that note of hope.
Thank you, Peggy. That was beautiful. Okay, Maria.
So what I have always respected about the feminist movement is that we take on all of these struggles and use the instruments that are, not because they're going to solve it, because we do know that the end of war in terms of just achieving peace has not led to the change that humanity needs to be able to survive and be in this planet in a decent way. But we always have to work in the two levels. And what I was saying when I said that I saw in New York on 9/11 how the world has changed is because war was no longer simplified by either militarism, dictatorship, resistance movements, and so on, but that all of the levels of violence came together and have come together and globalized in a way that, yes, we have to work in all of the spheres of influence because it is everywhere. I want to tell you that my thrust in being able to continue using the human rights system, regardless of the fact that, as Paola said, and Peggy, regardless of the fact that we know that it is flawed and it is not perfect and it is not a solution because the human rights system came out of a negotiation agreement about how states and peoples were going to relate to each other internationally. And we know that there was a lot that was excluded, and that has been our struggle, to include everything that was left out. But today, we have to use that system with its flaws because the end of war, which is really what I believe has to be the sphere of influence of us at all levels, because we have voice, we have people around us, we live in communities, but we also have to have an international voice because this belongs to all of us, or all of us are affected by it. And I believe that we have to do something as feminists to be able to bring the understanding that I have heard from Ross Pachesky, first of all, and that we have been working on, which is that this particular war has taken on a form of a war against all of the reproductive system of the regeneration of life. Even the kids, the health system, the educational system, so that nobody can live. And that, if we call genocide, then we have to take that as an amicus causa to the international court. The problem that we know as feminists of the international human rights system, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
No,
you, Maria.
finish, Maria. This is so important. Finish, Maria. Let's finish. Let her finish.
So the problem that we have is that the
Can you
system
bring
is
it
so
to a close,
fragmented.
Maria? Yeah.
Yes, that the system is so fragmented that we have to use it in that fragmented way, and we cannot let it fragment our vision. So we have to take an amicus causa to the cases that are being brought to international court. And I only have to say that the only reason why Palestine is not in the case about genocide is because Palestine is not a state, and the UN system is organized that way. That is a karma that has come back because Palestine is not a state because of the historical dimension that we know why it has been excluded. But there's also a court about criminal in war. And so anybody, any government, any state can take also what has been happening with Hamas and the acts of violence and can take it to court. And we should be there when it has to do with manifesting ourselves about that. But we have to support the cases because the end of the war, which is the immediate need that we have to keep on pounding on changing the disequilibrium of balance so that they come to terms that they have to stop it. And to me, that's a non-negotiable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. Okay. Maria, if you want to have people contact you about your passion so that they can get involved with your movement, then please put your contact information in the chat because you're very passionate about what you have to share and they may want to stay in touch with you. I'm looking at the time and I would like to be sure to give our other speakers moments to offer more closing. And I really appreciate, Jodie, that you've been putting in links for us to be able to access more information. So I would like to just invite you, Jodie, if you would like to begin your closing statement, that would be great.
All right. I just first want to appreciate everybody's voices and hearts and all that's been shared here today and say that this is happening around the world and the value of just coming together to feel, to hear, to listen, because what we're witnessing is so heartbreaking. And as someone spoke about earlier, the trauma that is so much of war is rooted in, and to heal is, you know, one of the things we need to be paying attention to. I've been posting ways that people could engage, and I'm thinking internationally. I look at, you know, who do we follow? And for me, it's Grace Naledi Pandor in South Africa, who is leading this case against genocide. And we've talked about the right and the wrong, but genocide is wrong. And like Mattia said, it's like what we're working for is liberation for all. And so you know, when we see women like this that are leading, taking such a courageous stand, the United States threatens South Africa to not do this, that each of us in our countries, to get our countries to stand with South Africa. And I put in the chat how you can, if you engage with that petition, we will ask you to take it deeper. We've been in across the world working and moving countries to join with South Africa. That matters right now. But I think it's the standing with, not against. And that I've also posted about the local peace economy, that we've been, our minds and our communities' minds have been owned by the war economy, how to divest, how to teach it, how to be it, how to create the alternative. The curtains are open. It is for us now to create the alternatives, not to be in the against, but to be in the creation, to be in the with, to be standing together with the women that are leading courageously, and they are. I look at these women that are with Medea in the halls of Congress, the mothers, the lawyers, the doctors. They are so courageous. They are telling their stories, not from for or against, but for humanity, creating conditions conducive for life. Does this create conditions conducive for life? If not, how do I lead us to that? Each in our own way, each where we live, each with the skills and the tools that we have available to us. So we're here at Code Pink to give you things to do, but it is all for all of us to do where we are. Thank you for who you are and what you bring, and all you dance.
Thank you so much, Jodie. Thank you for everything that you do. And we know where you are, so we'll be in touch. Laura.
Oh, I think I can only follow that up by just reiterating that we, as a community of women, have to continue to act. And we have to continue to take our rage, our fear, our sadness, and transform it into action. This is a key message of Jewish Voice for Peace. We don't let what's going on right now stop us. We make it activate us, and we stay activated. This is not a short journey. It will never be a short journey. But if we take it together, we are reinvigorated by each other. And I hope that just this conversation that we've had here has helped reinvigorate you, has helped re-energize you, and that you take that with you and continue it in your spheres of influence through your lens. And I just appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, Maria, do you have some closing words? I know you offered a very passionate plea with lots of information. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add in closing? And Marianne, I'll get to you in a minute, right after Maria.
I want to thank everybody. I'm really moved. And we have to have more voices in this discussion. I'm really moved about the ones that we have. So it is a good opportunity to also expand the voices. So my commitment to this is to be able to take this conversation to my community, but also to continue working to make that genocide case and any other case that comes up in any other court, that we make sure that it has our integrative perspective, but that we go through anything that has to do with ending the war so that we can work with people who don't even have a voice. Somebody said, and I'll end with this, somebody said in the court the other day, it's the first war where the victims have the cell phones and are crying to us for help, and we hear them. And I didn't even realize that as a journalist. And that cry we have to hear every night and turn into our action in all levels where we can have an influence. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, I'm going to go to Marianne and then Joan Marler and get back with our speakers. So, Marianne, can you unmute, my friend?
Just one quick thing, and it may not be possible. For those who want to stay in touch, is it possible for them to leave their iPhone addresses, their email addresses in the chat, because it would be a wonderful thing to be able to reach out to each other. Because I think what I've heard has moved my heart so much. I'm a Quaker and have tried to live in a peaceful community in a peaceful way. And it is not an easy task. And I'm so glad to have been here today and to have heard all of your voices. I bless you all.
Thank you, Marianne. We are very blessed to have you with us today. So, Joan? If you can unmute, my friend.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make this very brief, but I'm very, very grateful to everyone who's spoken so eloquently and from the heart and from your minds and from all that you bring to us, and that we are resonating together. And in terms of resonating together with a sense of kinship and mutual care, I want to thank Vivi for mentioning the dance that's going to be in your gathering in Greece, and also I'm glad that you mentioned Laura Shannon. And I myself have had as dancer, and I've taught dance for 30 years. I'm not doing it right now, but I have had so many experiences of being in a circle, holding hands and moving together in a choral fashion. And it's an ancient technology of sacred kinship and harmony. And I've so often felt it is impossible to be angry with someone or to be at war with someone or to have negative thoughts if you have danced for even a few minutes together like this, and you have really come into this pattern of harmony that is embodied, because and I think that this is something that peoples from very, very, very ancient times have done and are still doing in many places of the world. We need to dance together metaphorically as well as physically, not to forget the physicality of it and experiencing that, because how else will we be really experiencing kinship and love and conditions for life and conducive to harmony, kinship, and love. So thank you all very much, and I hope that we will all be dancing together at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Tracy? Can you unmute, my friend?
I'm completely thrilled to get to say this. This is beyond my wildest dreams, our harmony here, and how different we are, and how our feminism and our maternal gift economy values and the values that we share. It's so beautiful. When Peggy said there will be, we need this call for healing, I was like, oh no, we just need to be a learning community and deeply listen. You'll remember I said that on Wednesday. This is so healing. It's very beautiful. So here's my suggestion. We have this sphere of, we have so much here. Please, let's all re-listen to the tape, forward it to as many people as possible, really forward it as is, because it's just stunningly beautiful and so healing for everyone, as well as certainly full of wisdom. And the third thing is, yes, the sphere of influence, honoring our differences, which we've shown today, speaking across the spectrum of international strategies, along with dancing, along with the goddess, so many different strategies. But let us each have an action plan without fail that is really about what is our sphere of influence, local healing, vulnerability, talking in every way possible. What will our next steps be, so that we do not take this and just have it be something that sits in our heart, that in fact it continues to heal many other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Viv?
Yeah, thank you. And just to add that the two parts of this circle, one is the dance and holding hands, which is pretty amazing and yes, prehistoric and powerful even today. And the other is the circle of compassionate communication. In Zen Peacemakers is holding council, and in Plum Village, it's called sharing circle, where each one of us, and imagine that we're 5 groups and each group has 50 people, for example, or 20 or 30 people, and everybody talks and one at a time, and the rest of us just listen, just listening to each other with an open heart. That's the experience of unity, of letting go of labels, letting go of our trauma, just like being together in the now and holding space for each other. That's also such a healing work. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Miki. Okay, Miki, would you like to go next in the closing statements? And I think that will bring us back into the flow with Paola, Peggy, and Jen in our closing.
Sure. I want, in closing, to say my deepest commitment when I'm able to do it is to create within me and with others a field of love that is strong enough that it can surround the patriarchal field and melt it. I don't believe that we can smash the patriarchy, because smashing patriarchy is a patriarchal move. And what that means, if we're actually going to create a field of love and actually going to go for liberation for all, that means also liberation for Netanyahu, for Biden, for Hitler, for everyone. And I want to do whatever it takes inside our hearts to open them that wide, because when we open them that wide, whatever we then decide to do will look different. Whatever it is, in whatever area, wherever our sphere of influence is, I want love to be the fuel. That's it.
Thank you, Miki. Okay, Paola, you have some closing words for us?
Sorry. I think I will follow Peggy on King, who says, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Which I thank Peggy for giving me the space in this meditation, which doesn't prevent me to say that I'm very interested in 2 things. One, to keep a feminist eye on this human rights body, because it's our space. And I wonder if the 1325 could be a place for that, you know, the resolution that has been abandoned inside the UN. And the other is that Miki calling for international event that you call the Women in White. In the time of Ukraine, it was perhaps too much, impossible, but perhaps things have gone so much ahead that who knows? Who knows? Infinite hope. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paola. Peggy.
There's nothing more that I want to add, but to affirm that this has been a wonderful, wonderful experience. Tracy reminded me that I talked about healing, and I wasn't sure that it would work, but it has been very, very empowering and very wonderful. And I think we should find a way of maybe the use of this video as we show it to other people within our circles would be one way. And certainly, I think keeping in touch with each other would be another. I think it would be really important if we could stay in touch with the people who have been on this call and who have been moved by this call. I only want to come back to my thing about hope. That's it. Peace and love and hope.
Thank you so much, Peggy.
Can I add one thing? Thanks to Jen, because we thought it was absolutely crazy to do this meeting, but her courage and, you know, inconscious, we would say in Italian, but I think it was fantastic. Jen, thanks to your courage.
Yes. Okay, and I think, Jen, you bring us to actually the close of what we your closing statement, and maybe you can say a little bit about what you hope we can do together, or what is it that you would like to see next with this group, or whatever is on your heart. Don't feel pressured, because I know sometimes you feel like you have to have the answer right now. So don't feel like that.
Well, thank you. Yes, I mean, this has been beautiful, and I'm so happy that everybody has shared their hearts and their minds. And I think, just looking at the world history, that women are the answer, because we have been excluded from the patriarchal mindset. And we've also taken that point of view against ourselves for many years, but we haven't been in the leadership, obviously, as we all know. And we do have values, because we are we have the possibility of being mothers, even if we don't actually become mothers. So we imitate the model of the mother who has given to us. And we all have that potential. Whereas men are more siphoned off into the whole economy of exchange and patriarchy and so forth. I mean, there's a whole lot to say about all that, but anyway. So I do think that we have this possibility of making a really better world, and being the half of humanity that leads that forward. And I think this conversation is an example of that possibility. So my hope is in women, in the grand women's movement, in Miki's vision, in others' visions of women's leadership finally happening, not just to stop war, but to stop the destruction of the environment, and to make a human life in this planet a beautiful gift for everyone and for the planet herself.
Thank you so much, Jen. And yes, I think I can speak for all of us here. Genevieve, we wouldn't be here if had not been for you and the maternal gift economy. So our deepest gratitude. And I want to say also, to the women of the International Feminists for a Gift Economy Network, you continue to inspire me. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to be with elders, women who have been part of an activist movement for 30, 40, 50 years, I want to encourage you to make those relationships, because they are a font of wisdom. So I want to honestly, from my heart, say to all of you, and each of you, you know who you are. I don't have to name you. Thank you so much. And thank you for being in the struggle with us to be able to come to this point today, because it was beautiful. An experience that I also agree that can be used as a talking point, as a viewing experience that you have in your community, to spark conversations and to inspire your friends and family and community to research the information that's being spoken, but more importantly, the links that we've put in the chat, and the chat will be up with this video. Yes, Jen. You need to unmute, my friend.
I want to thank you, Letecia, for your marvelous ways of honoring everybody and bringing everybody into the conversation. So couldn't happen without you.
Thank you so much. It is my great pleasure that the maternal gift economy is the place that allows me to perfectly offer my gift. And I want each of you, as Miki has said, find that place in your sphere of influence where your gift can be flourishing, that you can change the world by offering exactly the completeness of you without reservation, and it will change the world. So with that, I want to invite you to come back, because we are looking at next week, and then we'll get back on our 2-week cycle, but a salon, perhaps. We are working on, what is it, Jen? It's
it's about feminism, the gifts of feminism in the last 50 years. And we have several people who have been important in that movement that we're going to ask to speak. Some of whom are here. You could wave if you want.
And I think that this is a wonderful sort of segue into a place that moves us into action, and a reminder that sometimes our hopes and our visions and our dreams may not happen right away, but these women have been together for 40 odd years or more, and they haven't stopped working together. So there's good community along the way. So thank you, everyone. And at this point, I would like to invite Guadalupe, if you would please sing us out. Yes.
Beautiful for me to share a song. I will read just a fragment of the text. At the banks of the moon, the sea, for from the mountain emerge. At the foot of the mountain, my rainy tropical forest rising up. At the depth of the forest, my mother in the arms of Tlazolteotl and Xochiquetzal, with her uterus growing with the rain. I started beating under the charms of Ixmucane. I saw the light, the flower, the stone under October rainfalls, and I was rain ever since. I was created in Mother Earth image. So, a la orilla de la luna habita el mar, de donde surgió la montaña. A la orilla de la luna habita el mar, de donde surgió la montaña. Y a los pies de la montaña se levanta mi selva lluviosa, tropical. Y en el fondo de la selva con la lluvia le crecía el útero a mi madre, y en brazos de Tlazolteotl y Xochiquetzal yo palpitaba, vi la luz, la flor, la piedra, bajo aguaceros de octubre, y desde entonces fui lluvia, fui mujer hecha imagen y semejanza de la madre tierra, y en el código genético del tiempo llevo escrito Isla Chira y Teotihuacán, Gran Nicoya, Tepeyac y Talamanca, Guayabos, Malpalenque, Boruca o Santa Cruz del Quiché. Me transmitieron la historia por la sangre, abrazada en el centro de esta América. Y están vivos los tejidos y mis indias, y el vaivén lunar de mi voz, herida mestiza. Por eso es maíz mi sangre, maíz mi piel, mi tortilla, y el maíz mi sol, mi luna. Vuelo de Quetzal, madre tierra, soy tu hija y a vos quiero regresar.
Thank you so much, Guadalupe. And for all of you who joined us today, thank you for your attention and the grace and mercy by which you attended to this very, very difficult topic. We hope to see you next week, and please feel free to join us. Write to us at the Maternal Gift Economy Movement at gmail.com if you have comments or questions. We look forward to seeing you again and staying connected. Take good care, my friends. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.